Hey guys, in this video I want to talk about yet another great roguelite game, and this one has the most meta progression of all roguelites I have ever seen. I just learned meta progression phrase for the first time. It has so many things that it actually kind of blew my mind. I have never seen so much things to unlock and so many things to change how you play. So I'm gonna try to kind of condense all the information and explain it in a simple terms. Now, one drawback that at least personally for me, is what I don't like about this game is the art style. It's kind of very cartoonish. It's a lot of yellow, and that was pretty much my only complaint. But if you don't mind the art style and if you're looking for a game that has a lot of depth and a lot of customization, and you can spend a lot of time in this game, then yeah, keep watching. So let's start with classes. Currently there are 14 classes, and someone in the chat told me that 8 more classes are coming. I'm not even sure how that's possible, just straight up adding 8 more classes out of nowhere, not one by one but just 8. Now each class also has different weapons, as you can see here. You have to craft those weapons. These weapons do not necessarily change like the class completely, but it sort of guides you how you can, what kind of builds you can do. For example, Barbarian, like the first weapon gives Whirlwind, which is pretty much spin to win, and Stomp. So you can just focus on AoE skills like a Blade Vortex or something like that, and just like play as a basic. The next weapon is focusing on bleeds. So you can actually make a bleed build, and as far as I know, bleed is actually really strong, especially once you unlock a special character skills, Scent of Blood. And then the weapon are unlocked at level 10, 40 and 70. So you need prestige for the character, which is kind of experience for character. So each character has its own level bar and experience, and you need to level each character. This final weapon is also for bleed, but it does have different skills. And for example, it does have a ground slam, which can actually even regenerate health for you. Now, the weapons also, as you can see here, have slightly different kind of starting stats. Like this weapon doesn't give you anything, no other bonuses. Like the character itself, the class itself has some starting bonuses, but each weapon has its own additional bonuses. So this one gives armor and like critical damage and cast frequency. This one has more life armor, AoE, but less movement speed, for example. So each class has its own weapons which can change builds. There are minion builds as well. For example, there's a necromancer with like the basic skills are skeletons, like skeleton archers, skeleton mages. But you can also, and I have not unlocked, play like a spellcaster necromancer, which focuses on doom, for example. There are different actually summoners, and you can even do a summoner that you wouldn't even expect, like legionnaire, which is kind of a spear and shield guy, right? But you do have a minion. Now let's move on to the most complex part. Well, not really the most complex. There's more complex than this. The skill tree. So the skill tree is expanding. At first, you're only gonna see this part. Once you unlock all of these, then each class has its own like mini branch. And these branches can also give global upgrades for all classes. It's blue ones that have like this special rim. So this would affect all the characters. So it does incentivize you to play all the characters, level them all, to give global powers, meta progression for all the characters, to make all the characters stronger. And that's also really cool, but not only that, but you also, with each character, unlock a special ability. The first point you put in the character passive tree branch unlocks a special ability. So for example, for Barbarian, you unlock a Rage Unleashed. You essentially kill enemies and fill up the bar. Once you fill up the bar, you gain extra buff that gives you all sorts of things like damage, speed, mitigation. And this is just one example. Actually, I like Barbarian the most because it's just simplest. The passive skill tree essentially is just designed in my opinion, a very smart way, because normally you wouldn't fit all classes in one circle. So some classes just are in a second circle. So for example, Necromancer gains a special ability. When you kill enemies, some of the enemies are gonna drop body parts. When you collect enough body parts, you can create Abomination, which is like a massive summon, which does pretty good damage. I'm just not sure, some of these seem kind of weak like this abomination, even if you play a necromancer as a minion build, that abomination doesn't seem to scale that well compared to all of the other minions. Maybe I'm wrong. Legionnaire can gather materials from fallen enemies to build a powerful catapult. And I actually personally don't really like collecting parts, because the collecting parts, you have to move very close to them to collect. It's not affected by the magnet which pulls all the crystals. But some other ones, if I can just find... Elementalists can collect elemental orbs. When you combine 3 different ones, it actually depends on what elemental orb you collect. 3 of them and you get a special skill proc, and if you combine a different ones you get a different skill proc. So it's kind of cool. I'm not sure how good it actually is. It does not feel to be that great, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just was scaling in a different way. So yeah, essentially each class has also special abilities that can kind of change how you play. So next thing, runes. And actually the passive 3, each class has 2 runes to unlock as well. Now the runes are another meta progression thing, and runes can change builds dramatically. There are some cool runes that I have not unlocked yet, but for example, Singular Focus. When you equip this rune, and by the way you have to equip runes on every character separately, and you have I guess multiple presets. So for example, when you equip this rune, skills can now be picked multiple times. So you could actually, let's say, go Necromancer and pick 6 skills that are summon skeletons. Not just 1 skeleton warriors, but like 6 skeleton warriors, and just have hordes of skeleton warriors. Now, whenever you get a power up that specifically affects that skill, I believe you don't upgrade all of those skills. That would be OP, but you only upgrade one of those skills randomly, like it says here. I haven't personally tried that. You still are not guaranteed to get that specific skill, but there are other things like these things that you can select. Let's say you go Necromancer but you want nature things, so you can actually select nature summons. A boar, a bear, a moose, which are tanks, a tiger, and you can just add them to your offered skill setup. You're still gonna get them randomly, but it just allows so much more flexibility and so much more customization to each build. And then there are like more generic things like increased damage per active boss currently alive. There are like explosions. There are like increased damage per life missing. Then there's like Weapon Mastery, Weapon Mastery is essentially a second skill that you get when you select a weapon. So each weapon has like the basic skill that you start with, and then the second skill if you use that Weapon Mastery rune. Like you can get extra reroll every 10 levels. There are some really cool customization, and you unlock more rune power as you unlock your characters or you play your characters. You can actually check achievements, what you haven't completed yet. I already have all the characters unlocked, the weapons unlocks. The one drawback is that you don't know what's that locked thing. What does it do? So when you have no runes and when you see this for the first time, you don't know what you are missing. Is it something cool? Is it something generic? And it is actually really cool things, but if no one told me about that, I would just think that it's pretty much just generic thing, and I may have quit before I unlocked some cool stuff. That's what I mean that this game has a lot of complexity, a lot of depth, but at the same time you don't necessarily know what you are missing, what other cool things the game has, because the locked things do not show information about it. Now another cool thing is I like how everything scales. There's pretty much no limit of how much critical chance you can get. You can get over 100% critical chance. You can get, for example, cast frequency. Cast frequency is essentially attack speed. Because everything is cooldown based, cast frequency lowers the cooldown. So you essentially can cast more stuff. The cast frequency, for example, also increases the hit rate of your minions, but there's also multicast. So with one cast you can actually proc 2 skills or 3 skills or 4 skills depending on how many hundreds of multicast you have stacked. You can also increase or reduce the transparency of skills, which is gonna be absolutely mandatory to reduce it to be able to even see anything on the ground. This zone I actually don't like because I cannot really see the telegraphed attacks on this kind of sand. So when you get new skills, you can replace those skills later. So even if you cannot really benefit from those skills for your build, you don't need to worry too much because you're gonna be getting many levels. I think the highest I was like level 160 something. I really like how some stats affect multiple things. Like for example, area modifier will affect your skeletons. For example, they're gonna hit bigger area, and you actually see your skill AoE, like skeletons when they are about to attack. There's a blue circle around enemies appearing on the ground, especially noticeable when you get a lot of AoE. 100% cast frequency does not mean like infinite like proc rate. If you get 100% cast frequency, you're gonna reduce your base cooldown by half essentially. And then if you get another 100%, it's gonna be another by half of that half. Essentially has diminishing returns. The crit chance you can also stack over 100%, really nice. The AoE you can also stack like so much, you can pretty much hit multiple screens. You don't even see your skills, you don't even see enemies appearing anymore unless they are stronger, and you just hit everything on the screen and off screen. So it doesn't even have a cap of how much fun you can have essentially. At some point you're gonna get one-shotted. There's so much happening on the screen later on, but you pretty much just see, oh my god, I'm leveling so quickly. Stop it, I wanna talk. You see these telegraphed attacks. All you're gonna see later on is those telegraphed attacks, pretty much. And it's very nice that it does have telegraphed attacks, but it also is a bit scary seeing only telegraphed attacks. You cannot even stop for a moment. Later on, you have to move all the time, and you have to get enough movement speed, you have to get enough dash, and enough mitigation to be able to survive. Let me show you about the progression of the difficulty as well. So first you need to select character, but you have to select it in here. So you select it here and then only go fight. And actually you also have to select runes for each character, like I said. Right now let's not worry about it. Multiple different maps, and each map needs to be unlocked kind of in a sequence. So first, to unlock the difficulty 2, you have to do difficulty 1 with all the selected courses. Now in order to do difficulty, let's say 6, you have to select all the checkboxes in all the previous ones, not just in the one previous one, but in all of them. So it stacks a lot of negative stuff, not just makes enemies tankier and faster, but can have some annoying things like it spawns a totem which you need to destroy because it keeps attacking you from very long distance. You also get more resources which you're gonna need for upgrading your passive tree, crafting weapons. You get essentially 5 waves of bosses. Depending on the difficulty, it may spawn 1 boss, it may spawn 2 bosses, it may spawn 5 bosses. Can it spawn 5 bosses? I'm not sure. It spawns, let's say, 4 bosses 5 times. So you would essentially need to defeat 20 bosses, and that's how you can gather those boss materials faster, by doing higher difficulty. But you also get other crafting resources and more prestige if you want to power level your characters. If you got a lot of upgrades on the passive skill tree, you can just take level 1 character and then go into higher difficulty and just boost its level a lot faster than you would normally could. I'm gonna definitely be looking out for this game and checking the new updates. Would definitely recommend. It's a lot of fun even if you don't like the art style. One last thing. I did a video about 2 games in one video, but I did not check a box to notify subscribers, so subscribers didn't even see the video probably. It just went into the wild to the algorithm. So if you're looking for some other roguelite games, definitely check out that video. The video was talking about differences between roguelite and roguelike, but also talking about Skybreaker's roguelike game and Death Must Die, which both I think are great games. And I got more roguelite games. I'm gonna put a playlist in the video description with all the roguelite and roguelite games that I did videos about. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.